Good evening and welcome to the July 26, 2022 meeting of the Public Works Committee. I now call this meeting to order. Mind that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast to be broadcast at a later date. I ask that anyone in the audience who's recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating their name and address.
Sam Squally, I'm recording.
Thank you, Sam. At this time, I ask that all electronic devices be placed in silent mode. I'm Councilor Schultz. I'm filling in for Councilor Fleming, the chairperson of this committee. I'm joined by Councilors Boschman and Squire. Okay. So let's get right to the agenda. On the agenda is a vote to approve minutes from the previous meeting, May 31st, 2022. I hear a motion for that.
Move to approve the minutes.
A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
So, the meeting minutes will be approved by unanimous consent, unless I hear otherwise, and I don't. So we'll move on to the DPW updates. Commissioner Erickson, would you like to give us the updates?
Sure. So we've got two main construction projects happening. The first is the Main Street Boulder Drive two-way conversion project. That's mostly finished. There's some work being done on the Cushing and Mill Street area right now as kind of an extension to that project. And then the remainder of the base contract to convert it to two ways is in the punch list phase right now. So overall, we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get into our first petition this evening, but I think the conversion's gone relatively smoothly. It's an ongoing situation where we're monitoring traffic flows and issues that come up. We've adjusted signal timing at both of the lights at either ends of Main Street. The first is Main at Academy, and then the second is Main at Day. I think we've made tweaks that have improved the flow overall, and we're really only noticing a backup during the rush hour traffic towards the 3-4 o'clock hour. And that's mostly at the Main at Day intersection backing up towards Moran Square. So we're going to keep monitoring the situation and implement changes as they're recommended or identified. The second major project that we've got going on is being conducted by the wastewater division, and that's the combined sewer separation project being performed by Polito and Sons. Polito's working on South Street right now. They're just about wrapped up. Once they're done with South Street, that'll complete their base bid work. And then they're going to move on to some additional work that we were able to squeeze into the project because of the low bid price that we received. Those change orders are kind of scattered throughout the city, most notably over in the Franklin Road area. So, Paul, it might impact your commute to and from the City Hall. Aside from that, it's kind of business as usual. Streets Division has been busy helping the Cemeteries Division build a wall over at Forest Hill Cemetery. That's just about done, and that'll help support the cemetery expansion, which will hopefully net us right around 700 graves. We're going to continue working on that project throughout the end of the summer. The Water Division is working on a few different things right now, aside from just daily operation and maintenance. They had a pump at the regional plant for their backwash filter fail, so they've had to kind of go into emergency mode and figure out a way to rebuild that pump and get it back in order. We just hired a company to rebuild it, and I think it's being reinstalled as of Thursday. Coincidentally, EPA and DEP are coming in for a tour on Thursday, so the Water Division certainly has its hands full. On the wastewater division side, EPA and DEP did a tour of the East Wastewater Treatment Plant last week. Things went really well. Overall, it seems that they're extremely impressed with the improvements that have been made since the consent decree was implemented in 2012. So that's a testament to all of the work that we've been able to do underneath the consent decree. It's cost a lot of money, of course, but it's been well worth it. I think EPA and DEP are both very happy. Gary, anything else to add?
No, I think you got it.
All right. So that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Erickson. Councilor Boschman.
I guess, Nick, on the backup on Rollstone and Academy and North Street in Maine. How come we don't eliminate the right-on turn from North Street to Main Street? The problem is that when the college is in full session, they go on, take a right-on red, approximately 3 to 5, and this is where you have a backup, and then you're blocking the, and people get fed up and they block the intersection because everybody's trying to take a left turn up there at the lights to go on Water Street Bridge, either to go down Water Street or to head up towards Clayton. I wrote that up numerous times on the, when I talk about it. That seems to be a big issue, why you have big backups here. And the lights over here in North, Rollstone Street and Academy, in my opinion, but what do I know? They're not working right. There's a big backup all the time. Almost up to the gas station sometimes.
So Paul, I like your suggestion on North Street. I'll definitely add that into, we've got a running list of kind of things to consider. I'll add that into that list. The backup that you're seeing, Rollstone, Academy, Maine, which street is the backup happening on specifically? Is it on Rollstone?
It's on
Rollstone.
Okay, we had a complaint earlier today about that too. I think something might have gotten tweaked when they reinstalled the detection unit that they rebuilt for Academy at Maine. So Gary's going to check that out later this week. We just talked about this earlier today. So hopefully that'll take care of your 2 issues, Paul. But I will mention the North Street at Main Street reconfiguration to Tom and get that on the list of things to consider.
And one other thing, I think what you ought to have, or you can bring it up to Tom, you should have a sign down at Lower Main Street and up here by where it breaks off, true traffic on Boulder Drive, shopping Main Street for shoppers. You know what I'm saying here? So you'll have a lot more cars going up Boulder Drive versus all the cars going up Main Street and all the cars coming down Main Street. As you can see, hardly no cars go on Boulder Drive now.
Yep, I agree. And I think community development is planning on a wayfinding signage purchase and installation. I think they're trying to come up with something that's a little bit more fancy than standard roadsides. So between that intersection, the Water Street Bridge approach to the Main at Day intersection, there needs to be some signage there indicating which lane to stay in for which direction, whether you're going straight through Main Street or taking a right onto Blossom and a couple other areas. So I'll definitely incorporate that into our plans.
What you think to say?
Councilor Squally.
On Rollstone and Academy, I put this into C-Click Fix, but I don't know if it's been fixed yet, but there's a walk signal that's faced 90 degrees the incorrect direction. I don't know if you fixed it?
Yep, I think that's fixed. Gary had Electric Light take care of that, I believe.
All right, great. And I got a question on Cushing Street, reconstruction approximate date. I don't know if you're aware. I know that I believe that there's been unexpected water line issues in that area that probably have delayed the project. But can you have a status? Can we have a status on Cushing Street?
Sure. So the water main on Cushing Street itself has been completed. They have excuse me, the COVID just doesn't want to let go. There's a little bit of work left to cross from Cushing over to Commercial Street Bridge. They're putting another hydrant right before the bridge there. I think the contractor, either they're out there today or they're planning to come back later this week to finish that work up. At the same time, PJ Albert is working with their subcontractors to do all of the work on Cushing Street and Mill Street itself. Last week, they built some granite benches out there. So those overall came out pretty good, I think. So we're hoping another 2 to 3 weeks before that's completed. A lot of what's left is just surface treatment. So sidewalks, curbing, landscaping, etc.
And to the building, has that been resolved? Because I believe Strongsville Coffee closed for for lack of water, lack of consistent water at least.
The building water, that hasn't been an issue through construction. We set up bypass pumping. So the owner of the coffee shop should should have been able to open since day one. I think she chose not to because of a bad experience last summer. But the way that we reinstalled the water main and reconfigured everything, she should have had a consistent feed of clean water throughout the duration of the project. So I'm not sure why she's not open, to be honest. I think this has been explained to her, but I don't know.
There was a concern of sediment getting into the water line and damaging equipment.
Right. That did happen last summer because PG Albert hit a water main out there and it caused an issue. We had to shut down the main and so on and so forth. But the way that the main was constructed this year, we ran bypass pumping specifically to avoid that issue. So aside from the initial shutdown to install that bypass pumping back in, I want to say early June, there shouldn't have been any concerns about water quality since. And the water main on Cushing Street itself is fully complete. It's already installed. Gate valves are open. It's working. It's been pressure tested. Everything's good to go.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Superintendent Whitley, I was going to ask you about the sign turned the wrong way. We had one on Milk Street, one looks. That was going to take care of it. Thank you, Gary.
Oh, that reminded me of one more thing. We saw that the signs were put up, the no turn on red signs on Bemis and Winooski and Water. But I got a complaint that this no turn on red sign from Water to Bemis is at like a 45-degree angle.
Right, that's supposed to get back to Old Street. So you can see the oncoming traffic. On the opposite corner, pole, so you can see when you come to the stoplight.
Okay. So it's just temporarily right. It was there this afternoon. But the one on Bemis to Water.
All right. I think the only solution really is to take that sign and mount it up on the signal next to the other signage that's up there. But that's not something that we can do really in-house. I think we're going to have our signal contractor come out and use their bucket truck at night and take care of it or something like that. So I'll talk with Gary offline and figure out how to get it done.
Yeah, it would be best up on the signal, but even right now, if it was just moved, at 20 degrees, then it would make it more clear that it's in this back.
Right.
Okay, I guess we're all set. We'll move on to the new petition for review. We've got, thank you, Commissioner Erickson, by the way. And Superintendent Whittington. Answer those questions. We'll start with petition 19922, an ordinance amending section 16924 entitled Parking Prohibited at All Times pertaining to Boulder Drive as outlined in the enclosed order, referred from the City Council on June 21st, 2022. All
right. So this petition was drafted by Community Development, submitted by the Solicitor's Office to support the Main Street Boulder Drive two-way conversion project. So the petition includes all of the ordinance changes necessary to support the current configuration that we have out there with two-way. Right now, everything seems to be mostly working nicely. Obviously, over the next several months, we're going to continue to monitor issues that come up and recommend additional ordinance changes as necessary to support any improvements that we see necessary. But right now, my recommendation is that we accept the parking prohibited at all the petition as submitted. I think it's titled parking prohibited at all times, but it includes all of the ordinances required for that two-way conversion. So my recommendation is to vote in support of it and then make additional tweaks as necessary between now and the final readings if necessary.
Question or motion to approve?
I got a question. I got a question. Number one, how many parking spaces do you know we're going to be losing on Boulder Drive? Quite a few, right?
Yes, I don't know offhand the total number, but the majority of the parking on Boulder Drive has been eliminated to allow for bike lanes and two-way traffic.
My question, so the reason why we're actually taking away the parking spaces is for bike lanes, right?
Bike
Is
lanes
that-
and to make sure that we have adequate lane width for two-way traffic there, yeah.
Because we had two, there used to be, the street, when it was one way, you had 2 lanes, and there was parking on one side.
Right.
So I don't understand what the difference is. My only concern is this, if we're gonna put a bike lane in, which I was told that's what the goal is there, and there's not gonna be a separation between the road pavement and the bicycles, then I won't support it. I won't support this change if they're not gonna have separation.
Well, right now, there's no additional work that's happening out there for regarding the bike lane. So what you see out there is what's going to be installed. The bike lane runs alongside the travel lane for a distance, and then it actually goes up on the sidewalk, so it's protected for a distance. So part of this ordinance change involves allowing bicycles to utilize that sidewalk portion of the bike lane.
All right. Well,
So
all right.
unfortunately, Councillor, we just don't have the right-of-way width out there to support a completely separated bike lane. I agree with you. That's something that would be nicer to have a separated bike lane. It makes people feel safer when they're biking, especially for people that might be older or people with families, young kids, and whatnot. Unfortunately, out here with the two-way traffic and the sidewalks and the bike lanes, there's just not enough width, and we'd have to do significant takings to support that type of design. And unfortunately too, because we're accepting grant money for this project, we have to follow certain guidelines, and it has to provide accommodations for vehicles, pedestrians, and bicycles. We can't discriminate against one or the other two. So that's kind of what we were dealing with when this design kind of came about. And what you see out there is kind of the result of Ty and Bond and community development and DPW and all the other stakeholders. That's kind of what was come up with.
Commissioner Erickson, I have a question. To offset those parking spaces that we're losing on Boulder Drive, are we adding those spaces inside the Mill Street garage at first level to offset that? How many are they going to be pretty much offsetting the ones in that area, Boulder Drive?
I don't know the total number, but the parking garages are being restriped to allow for some additional spaces. We've got a couple parking plans from community development that DPW is actually working on painting in-house. So I'd be happy to go over those with you at some point. I just don't have those numbers off the top of my head.
Those parking spaces, they're being striped in red as opposed to the yellow parking spaces that are in that garage, that Mill Street garage?
I think some are being striped in yellow, and those are the public parking. And then we do have some parking passes that people have purchased, and we need to make sure that those spaces stay reserved. And I believe those are being painted in a different color, and that must be the red that you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Those are the permit parking only spots.
Any other questions?
Well, the other thing, Mr. Chair, the only thing I have for you, Nick, I'm going to support this, but from now on, if you can remember, I know you got a lot on your plate. When they start making roads and they want to put bicycle lanes up, if they can have a separation, because I read an article in the ARP, because I used to get that magazine because I'm up there in age, and they claim that ever since they started doing this complete streets, there's a lot more people getting hurt now with bicycles from cars. And they put a stop on it. Some places in the West Coast actually stopped doing it because too many people were getting hurt until we can come up to a better design. And when I was down in Boston, I liked the one they had down there, I think it was in Cambridge, with the actual separation where you couldn't hit a guy in the butt. Some of the sidewalks. You must have seen it. You seen it? They were pretty nice, so that's the only reason why I asked. It's not to cause trouble. But I think if we're gonna do it, I think there should be a separation. I think you would see more people on the road with bicycles if there was, because the roads are narrow.
I agree with you, Councillor. I think it's a much preferable configuration. It's kind of what we're trying to do with the John Fitch Highway project between Summer Street and Lunenburg Street. have a separated bike lane, make it safer for, people using it. We got to consider the right of way width and what real estate we have to work with. And unfortunately, in this case, it didn't work out. But I agree. I don't road bike, but I mountain bike, and I've been on the road before, and it's kind of a nerve-wracking feeling to have cars zipping by you, 2 feet away or less at 50 miles an hour.
Yep. Motion is, yep.
Second.
Okay, we'll take this under unanimous consent. Moving on, we have petition 20122, residents of Bella Vista 1 condominiums located 875 John Fitch Highway, Fitchburg, respectfully request support with our neighborhood improvement petition. It is our intent to proactively implement these improvements and allow us to live in the comfort, health, and safety of our own homes. Because the title is this goal, peace. This goal can be achieved by addressing public safety issues on John Fitch Highway and ensuring the safe and enjoyable use of Coolidge Park by all citizens. Our proposals include, but are not limited to, the following. Please see the attached document for all requests. Now I have the petition, and I think we should take up 20122 as well as 20322, because 20322 is Bella Vista condominiums number 2, and their petition is exactly the same. So why don't we take both of them up at the same time? I can give you a quick rundown of their improvement petition here. There's 6 items, and we met with Councilor Fleming. She showed her support for the petition. Thank her for that. The first one is to install a legitimate crosswalk at 855, 875 John Fitch Highway to enforce the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on said roadway. The second one is to enforce Chapter 132, Peace and Good Order, Article 6, noise control, with specific attention paid to the Dick Charlton Memorial Softball Field in Coolidge Park, especially on weekends. So it's a lot of noise emanating from the softball field. Update the rules and regulations for the use of public parks and playgrounds, last approved in May 2002, to include adherence to the city's noise ordinance. Number 4, the required permit and minimal fee to use the softball field and enforce the laws and rules governing noise control, consumption of alcoholic beverages, outdoor cooking, rubbish removal, parking, and park hours. Number 5, obtain funding to implement weekend police details at Coolidge Park, especially from April 1st to October 31st. And the last one, number 6, is to install a locking gate at the Townsend Street entrance to Coolidge Park and lock it between the hours of dusk and 8 a.m., just like we do at Power Supply. So those are the 6 items, and they are the same for both petitions. Bella Vista 1 is one building, of course Bella Vista 2 is another building. Councilor Boschman.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question on number 6? If you want the DPW to put a lock in the gate, some places on John Fitch Highway, they don't have a fence, they put up stone. What would be the whole purpose of that?
I agree with you, Councilor Boschman. It might be a few things to do.
No, don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of some of this, but if you're watching the softball game and somebody hits a home run, and if there's 100 people down there cheering.
Yeah, noise control seems to be a predominant issue in this petition. So yeah, that's something that would have to be addressed. I don't know how you would address that.
I mean, that's a park, that's where you play, and if people sound up, I don't know, that's how I feel. I don't know how you feel. Do you feel the same way?
I'd like to hear from Commissioner Erickson if he has a opinion on this petition.
Sure. In speaking with Marissa, she indicated that she wanted this petition to go to Parks Board first, and unfortunately it didn't make it onto the agenda last meeting. I think most of the items in this petition need to be approved by Parks Board before anything else, because technically any of that property that's considered parkland falls under their jurisdiction. Really, I think the only item that applies to Public Works Commission here is the crosswalk across John Fitch Highway. We've had complaints for several years about the crosswalks that are out there. At one time they were painted, but they are not ADA accessible on either end. So by law, we're not allowed to repaint them until we install ADA compliant ramps at both sides, both ends of each crosswalk. So it's on our radar. It's something that we'd like to do, and it's certainly something that a past petition will help prioritize. So I'd support that component of it, but I would recommend that this petition be held until the Parks Board has a chance to weigh in on the remaining items.
Get a motion for that, or
Yeah, I would move that the Public Works Committee suggest that it gets referred to the Parks Commission and to the Public Safety Committee of the City Council. Because there are numerous things in here that I would think
we
residents.
won't call number one the petition, we'll call it proposal. It's the way it's put there as a proposal. Because the petition overall is all 6 of them, so you need to clarify that.
Suggest approval of the
Proposal number 1.
proposal, suggest approval of proposal number 1 of the petition and forward to Parks Commission and Public Safety.
Can I say one thing, Councilor Schultz?
Yeah.
So one thing to keep in mind is that DPW's got a relatively finite budget for sidewalk improvements on an annual basis. So I think what I'd like to do is pursue CDBG grant funding next year to address these ADA ramps, or some other means of funding aside from using our annual budget, which this would pretty close to chew up. So there just needs to be an asterisk attached to the approval that it's subject to a timeline that's according to when we can obtain funding.
Would it be a better idea to hold both of these petitions until we can get the funding, Commissioner Erickson? Or do you think it would? Because it's got to be. I don't think it
matters. I don't think it matters either way, whether it's approved now or if it's approved in a couple of months. I think we're still going to have to wait until the CDBG cycle refreshes to apply for that. Usually the applications for CDBG happen in January, early January. So I'll put that on my list of things that I'd like to include in future CDBG proposals. In the meantime, we'll look for any other grant opportunities that might be out there to help fund something like this. But
I'll move that we recommend approval of proposal number 1 in the petition pending DPW funding, and suggest that we forward to the Parks Commission and Public Safety.
35 miles.
Well, the 35 miles per hour part, we can't. Okay. I recommend approval of proposal number 1, the legitimate crosswalk portion only, and pending DPW funding, and then recommend forwarding to Parks Commission and Public Safety Committee.
Now, the Parks Board need to look at a crosswalk, or would that be just public safety?
Correct. I think it could just be Public Works Committee for the crosswalk. But I'm sure Sergeant Boudreaux would want to weigh in on it, and we'll try to get his input throughout the design process anyways, just to make sure sight lines are good and he's comfortable with it, everything that we're proposing.
Motion to approve?
Yes, we motioned and seconded.
Second. Okay, and we'll take it under unanimous consent.
Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda, well, we're backing up from 20322 back to 20222. Councilor Marisa Fleming to fix the cracking sidewalks due to overgrown tree roots in Stony Brook Village, beginning at Stony Brook Road, which begins at the side of 170 Village Crossing and continues around 108 Village Crossing. That was referred to City Council June 21st, 2022. Marisa's not here.
But if you remember the last time we were here, we approved the tree trimming.
Yes.
That's still in process, and we did resolve with the residents there to pay over the existing, so this should be okay.
Okay, so we don't need to take this, I mean, I guess I remember that, that's why I was a little confused that this was on the agenda.
Move to approve the petition to approve 22.
What do you say we're gonna do with the,
We're gonna take out the existing flag,
yeah,
build up the sidewalk, move the roots,
yeah,
then repave it.
okay, all right.
Move to approve the petition.
I'll second it.
Second, we'll take it under unanimous consent. Okay, we're gonna take up the health petitions for review. The first one is 08920, Council Bernie Schultz and resident Alex Freeman to remove the no turn on red sign at the intersection of John T. Strino Memorial Drive and Water Street. And I won't read the number of times it was held, but it's the last time was at the May 31st meeting, 22 meeting.
So I'm happy to report that I've solicited a proposal to conduct a traffic study at this intersection. It's going to cost us $4,500, and I'm working on issuing a notice to proceed for that right now. So that's in motion, and once we have the results from the traffic study, I'm happy to report back here, and then we can come to a final vote on this petition.
Okay, so do I have a motion to hold this petition until the traffic study is?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah. Second,
Okay, so we'll take that under unanimous consent. Next petition is 02722, Councilor Derek Cruz on behalf of resident Austin Awad at 8 Boylston Street to install a streetlight on telephone pole number 4 on Boylston Street. That was held at the May 31st, 2022 meeting. We have Councilor Cruz here who'd like to speak on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just here for an update. I remember last time, Commissioner, you said you're going to go over and explore some other options like moving the light or turning it up, and here to check on that, see how it's going. I'm not going to have Councilor Boschman support for a new light, so just checking in.
So Gary went out and took a look at this light. He gets in at 5 a.m. every day while it's still dark. So he checked it out before work, and he thinks that if we take the light and rotate it from Harvard Street to Boylston Street, it'll help provide better coverage for both streets and the entire intersection as a whole. I also looked at the pole requested for the installation of the street light, and I'm going to share my screen and just show you kind of what I'm seeing. And it's hopefully it'll help explain itself. So give me just 1 second here. So this is the pole number 4, which was requested to have the light installed on it. There's a lot going on in this pole. There's a transformer up here at the top and a whole bunch of other wires. So one thing I'm going to do now that we have a streetlight contractor on board is I'm going to ask him to look at the site and see if a light could be installed right here. But if it's too crowded of a pole and he's not comfortable having this transformer above the light, then I'm afraid we're going to have to go with the other solution that Gary explored, which is rotating. Let me get over to it. Rotating this street light here 90 degrees so that it provides better coverage down here and in the intersection here.
I guess my question then would be to you and to Gary, will I then be getting calls that the street is not lit up enough if we rotate that light over?
Say that one more time.
If we rotate that light a full 90 degrees, will it take too much coverage away from the street itself? I think that's, what's that, Maverick there, I believe it is?
It's Harvard right there. So if we let me share my screen once again here. So the next closest light moving towards Summer Street is right there on that pole. This one right here. So as you can see, it's a kind of a distance from the intersection. So it's certainly going to create a little bit of a darker intersection here. We could look at installing a light on this pole to compensate, which might be an option. Or we could look at installing a light on this pole here, which might be an option. But this one's kind of busy. It has a transformer on top. What I've noticed is that it doesn't seem like we have any street lights installed where there's a transformer on the top of the pole like this. So I think it's something that is kind of frowned upon by either Unitil or our streetlight contractor. Same with this pole. So I think if we rotate this one 90 degrees, I think we might have to compensate by adding one here. And again, that's kind of a plan B. I think plan A would be to talk to our streetlight contractor and see if we can squeeze one in on this pole.
Well,
The question, Mr. Chair. How come we just don't add a brighter bulb on pole number 5 down there? I mean, we haven't waited till the condominiums are sold and picked up, because usually they're brighter than hell. People want everything lit up.
So the LEDs that we have installed are fairly bright. They're set at 50% per agreement with Unitil. So I did look into just turning it up, but we can't leave it turned up permanently, as that violates our agreement that we have with Unitil, because they meter the lights based on an assumed consumption of power. And that would long-term violate the terms of that agreement. So unfortunately, that's where we're at with turning the light up. We could look at getting a higher wattage light, Paul, especially if we're having someone go out there and rotate that light 90 degrees. If we install a more high-powered light, it might compensate for turning it. I got to look and see what wattage this one out there is. But based on what I'm seeing, it looks like a relatively. We've got two models. One's a low wattage one, and one's a really high wattage one. This one looks like a lower wattage one. So you're absolutely right. We could swap it out with a brighter one.
Because I'm not a fan of keep on putting light fixtures up and light fixtures on. I don't mind if you take them from one pole and put them on another pole. But to add more lights, I'm not a fan of that. Somebody's paying for it. And
I'm a fan of it if it improves safety in that area, not so low, just for the record.
well, if you can prove to me there's a lot of problems up there, then I listen to you. I mean, I can say the same thing, that a kid's gonna get hit by a car over here, but nobody get hit by a car. So I'm not against safety. I'm all in favor of safety, but I can't see spending the taxpayers' money to keep on adding lights. It's great that everybody wants lights, but if you raise their tax bill, you'll never hear the end of it. So I'm not in favor. I won't support putting up another light. I think if you want to add a light and wait till the condominiums are built, you see how much light it's going to come out of there. I mean, all these years, you only had 2. All of a sudden, now it's a big issue. I don't understand it. I'm 70 years old, never been brought up before. Now it's a big issue. I don't get it. The other colleges never had any problems. Now it's a big issue. I got one lady, she was complaining that the light wasn't on because she didn't want to turn that porch light on so people could walk up the stairs. Really? The guy that wants it right on, how come he doesn't turn the front porch light on? I don't know. That's the way I look at it. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Cruz. I know it's your ward and I know you're fighting, but if it was none at all, I would say yeah. But there's one on the corner. So I try to look around, when I look around somebody else, I say, we can take that one off and put it over here. Or if there was one year before and we took it down, then we should put it back. But when I went down to look, it didn't look like there was one year before.
Do we have a motion on this petition at all, Councilor Squire?
Nick, would you suggest that we hold this pending your, investigation with Unitil for the poll and pending investigation returning it, or?
Yeah, let me talk to the streetlight contractor and see if it's possible to install a new streetlight on the pole requested. We've had them on board for about a month and they've been fantastic so far. So they should be able to check into this relatively quickly. Aside from that, I'm kind of impartial as to how we proceed. I'm kind of laying out the options and it's up to the committee to decide. If it's really to address an issue of crime, I'd lean towards supporting it. But, I also understand Councillor Boschman's point about protecting the city's financials and not just throwing money at every streetlight request we get. So I'm kind of torn.
Commissioner Erickson, how much it costs to run that street light or one street light on that particular street? Do we have any idea at this point?
Estimated cost is around $4,500
to run one street light on a street.
Right, to put one on an existing pole.
One on the existing pole.
And so Councilor Cruz, I don't recall mentioning safety particularly. What was the residents' concern?
The resident concern is that there are a lot of children playing in this area, and it's very dark at night, especially in the summertime. And they play late to the night. And several of them are his kids as well. So I don't think it was an incredibly big issue. I spoke to Mr. Watt today just to see, to check in with him. It's not like he's got a pitchfork and he's going to come down to City Hall and ask for Councilor Moshman's head for not supporting this. I would call it a minor issue that I'm looking to address for him. It was one of the first things that I took up when I got, after I got sworn in. It was the first petition I put in. Yeah, it's a learning process with everything to get the best results for all of us. I think I'd be happy with Superintendent Whittington's solution for rotating at 90 degrees, but I want to make sure we have the residents don't lose light. Especially there where there's more traffic on Harbor than there is on Boylston, I'd be less inclined to take light away from the drivers that are there. So it's what exploring solutions is.
And that reminds me, I feel like I heard you say 45 degrees and 90 degrees. What is it? Would you suggest moving it 90 degrees or 45 so it kind of covers the intersection?
I'd say 90. If I said 45, I misspoke. And Gary, do you agree with that?
Yes, yeah, that's even better than 90 degrees.
And what would the cost be to rotate the light 90 degrees?
What would it cost? I'd have to, I don't recall off the top of my head what our hourly wage is for a laborer with a bucket truck, but somewhere under $1,000 if we're reusing the existing light and arm. If we're putting in a new light and arm, probably somewhere around the same, $4,500. But we'd be able to take the old stock down, keep it for future use, and we just replace it with a brighter fixture.
I'll let you make the motion, Councilor Bushman.
I'll make a motion that,
Hold it pending.
We can hold it.
The light
Or investigation.
contractor, or we could motion that we turn the light.
I make a
or-
motion that we hold this pending I make a motion we hold this until we see what happens at the condominium first. We see how bright it is then.
Any idea how quickly that condominium development will be fully operational?
Probably sometime this fall. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to check in with the project owners. Let me share my screen one more time though. So the condo development's going down there. We've got a number of houses.
But there's an entrance off
Right
the
up
wood.
here, yeah,
Yeah, if you keep going.
keep going.
Right, but I think the dark spot is right here because you've got a light over there at the intersection. You've got another light right here. So my guess is that the dark area is right in here, which is kind of behind this house, behind that house. So any light that comes out of the condo development, I don't think is really going to make its way to this one dark spot here. It's certainly going to light up the sky over here. And I believe there's an entrance somewhere right over in here. So it'll help the whole area get lit up quite a bit. But I think because this house is here, and these trees are here, it just creates this dark little kind of nook right where this vehicle's parked. But I don't know. I haven't been out there myself in the middle of the night, so that's just pure speculation.
Make a motion we hold it.
Second.
And the unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Sorry about that, Mr. Cruz. I should get rid of it.
Yeah, would have been your right.
I'm going down there at midnight.
Midnight, you know, it can start at like 9.
Okay, we have one more item on the agenda, one more petition that was held previously. It's Councilor Sam Squire on behalf of resident Nick Haynes to add a four-way control stop at the intersection of Victoria Lane, Industrial Drive, and Game On Way. During times of heavy traffic flow in or out of the Game On facility, residents of Victoria Lane do not have the right of way to cross and thus must wait for long periods while the traffic lines go through. A four-way stop sign is not feasible. An alternate solution shall be investigated by the city. And that was held at the May 31st, 2020 City Council.
So for this petition, I've also solicited a proposal from one of our on-call traffic engineers. The quote that I received was $11,200 to conduct the traffic study. So I'm in the process of issuing a notice to proceed for that as well. Once I have the results from that traffic study, I'll update the committee once again, and then we can reevaluate and take a vote on this petition.
We're very hold.
Wait a second.
Second.
So we'll hold this petition with the unanimous consent.
Nick, I've got a question. Can I ask him a question?
Yes, Nick wants to answer that question. We're through the agenda, but go ahead. Yeah.
I just want, I thought Game On was gonna change their part of their private road, and they were gonna put a stop sign up on their property.
They're supposed to have a stop sign on their property as you're leaving their driveway, getting into Game On Way. It's supposed to be on the entrance to the right. I think they had to take a tree down, and then they were going to install that stop sign. Is they haven't followed through yet? I haven't been up there in a couple of weeks.
I haven't been up there, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't been up there.
Okay. I'll double check on it for you, Counselor.
To adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.